Alrighty, class. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Glad to have you here. Looks like about 6 or 7 of you guys are already here chatting with each other, which is awesome. Glad to have you, here talking with each other. Glad to have this live lesson with you today. I tried to do a live reading with Treasure Island this morning, and I, for some reason, screwed up and it didn't work. And there was a couple of you guys in here that were chatting amongst each other, and I thought I was live, and so I thought you guys were not talking about the lesson, and so I timed you guys out. So I'm sorry about that. I was never even live, but let's remember to keep the lesson and the chat all focused on this chapter 9, the Forbidden City, that we're going to cover. But you guys jumping in here early to talk with each other is awesome. So I'm glad that you guys were able to do that. Scotland likes my shirt, thanks. Got it right before I got married. We went to the Bahamas on my honeymoon, so I wanted an island shirt. But yeah, let's get started, all right? 1 second really quick. Bring this over here so we can see it. Yeah, so let's remember to keep chat focused on the lesson. If you have questions about the lesson, you're welcome to type that in the chat. If you know answers to questions, you can type that in the chat. If you need me to repeat something, you can type that in the chat. But let's stay focused, all right? Right now is school. This is school right here. So we need to get focused. One more thing before I forget. I think Caden does a very good job about this because he has his YouTube username is not his name. So if you have a YouTube username that's not your name, if you could just type your name when you first jump into the chat, so it will help me remember. But like Scotland and Joshua, they have their name like as their YouTube username. So just yep. Thanks, Elena. That's perfect. Is it Ella? How do you pronounce it? Elena? I gotta get this. I think I do this every time you jump in here, and that is my fault. I just want to pronounce it right. So if you just can help me. Elena, okay, or the first one or second one, Elena or Elena. It's okay. Thanks for forgiving me. I think I do it to myself. I think I look at somebody's names and I try to pronounce it. I just get both. All right. Okay. Anyways, so let's review really quick of what we learned about last time. All right. Chapter 8. What was Chapter 8 about? Well, I'll give you a hint. It was about Kublai Khan and Marco Polo. That was the chapter title. And the big question for Chapter 8 was, why might the development of the Postal Service have been considered one of Kublai Khan's greatest achievements? So what happened in Chapter 8? What do you think, Josh or Elena, Scotland, Caden? What happened in Chapter 8? What did we learn? Kublai Khan built a great empire that had many important achievements. And Marco Polo came and visited during that time. We're not for sure if Marco Polo actually met Kublai Khan, but we know that he came during that time period and wrote about the great achievements that took place during that time. All right. We know about the Postal Service and how, hey Josh, glad to have you here. We know that Kublai Khan created the Postal Service. That's a postal service similar to that is still being used today. Please stop typing hi, Josh. If things aren't, I'm glad you said hi once, but we don't need it 3 times, okay? The Postal Service, is still being used today. It helps us get, messages and packages sent across the whole world. And so that was his huge accomplishment, right? Okay, so during this lesson, we will learn about who took control of China after the Mongols. So let's call attention to the big question. All right. The big question is, how did the Manchu gain control of China? That's right, Caden. They created a postal service to get information faster. That's perfect. Yep. All right, so our big question is, how did the Manchu gain control of China? So as we read through this chapter, I want you guys to look over for ways how the Manchu took over China, and then you'll be able to respond to the big question. All right. Okay, you guys ready to get started? Let's follow along. The Forbidden City. Some of you guys may have visited it, maybe not, but maybe you've seen pictures of the Forbidden City. All right, so we're going to learn about the Forbidden City. Now, starting off, the not-so-handsome emperor. There is probably only one man in all of Chinese history who is famous for not being especially handsome. His name was, and this is kind of tough to pronounce, so let's pay attention to this, all right? Yuang Yang, all right? Yuang Yang. So Zhu was born in the year 1328. After he reached adulthood, many artists painted portraits of him. He had a pock-marked face and a large jaw that stuck out. So pock-marked, maybe he had acne scars or had the chicken pox or something. And that's what pock-marked means. And he had a large jaw that stuck out. But the little boy with the large jaw grew up to become Emperor of China. Yuang Yang came from a very poor family of farmers. His parents owned money to their landlords and had to move a lot when they could not pay the rent. Zhu never knew a real home. When Zhu Yuang was a teenager, Huang he changed his course and overflowed. Waters flooded all the fields and destroyed the crops. People starved to death. Disease broke out and killed many others. But both of Zhu's parents died. At 16 years of age, Zhu was an orphan. Desperate, he went to a Buddhist monastery to ask for food and a place to live. But the monks there were very poor themselves. The monks had no choice but to send Zhu and people like him out to beg for food and money. All right, so let's look at this picture. Here's a picture of Zhu, and let's read the caption. Zhu Yuang Yang founded the Ming Dynasty, which lasted more than 250 years. Wow, that's amazing. And how many generations is that? Is a generation, we learned about this a while ago, a generation is about 25 years. So how many generations is that? 250 divided by 25. 10 generations. But you can see right here, he has his large jaw. This is what one of the artists painted. So the Huangyi, or Yellow River, is sometimes called China's sorrow, looking at this picture now, because of the destruction it causes when it floods. Zhu Yuang became an orphan when the river flooded in the 1300s. So this river flooded and destroyed what he was living at, and this was a big reason why he became an orphan. Okay. All right, let's continue to read. The rebel. For years, Zhu traveled around the country begging. He saw scenes of terrible poverty and suffering. People blamed the Mongol government for their troubles. The poor got so angry that they formed bands of rebel fighters. They stole food and attacked government troops. Zhu joined a rebel group and eventually became one of its leaders. This sounds like Star Wars, guys. When the commander of the rebels died, Zhu became the new commander. In 1368, Zhu sent a huge army to attack the Mongol emperor. The Mongol emperor fled back to Mongolia, and Zhu proclaimed the beginning of a new dynasty, the Ming, which means brightness. Zhu knew that he had a bad temper and that he could sometimes be cruel. He gave an order saying that he would let people write letters telling him what they did not like about the government. Zhu promised not to get mad, but when he read some of the letters, he forgot his promise. One letter made him so angry that he ordered the author to be brought to the palace in chains and thrown into prison. Because he had been poor himself, the emperor made laws to protect poor farmers from rich and powerful nobles. Zhu made it a crime to take land from poor people. If you did, the emperor would have you have your nose cut off. All right, so let's stop there really quick and ask our first two questions, okay? So questions 1 and 2. The first question is, what made Zhu Yuang's appearance unusual? What was different about Zhu's appearance, and why was it unusual? And then our second question that I want you guys to answer, Scotland, Josh, Elena, Caden, can you guys answer one of these questions? Question 2 is, how would you describe Zhu's early life? All right. So first, what made Zhu's appearance unusual? And then the second question is, what happened during Zhu's early life? What are some things that happened? Those that are following along should be able to answer the question pretty quick. I know you guys can type quick because you guys have been typing in the chat during this lesson. Scotland's doing a great job of helping us stay focused. So it looks like Scotland's answering really sad, and you answering question 2, or his appearance. I guess both. The answer to both questions could be really sad in a way, right? His appearance was unusual, so people might have mocked him. But what made his appearance unusual? That's question 1. And what is his appearance? Yeah. So, but what made his appearance sad or unusual? There were 2 things that we read, that you listened to, that we were following along with. Something about this part of his face was different. And then he had a certain word describing his face, like what it looked like. And then how would you describe his early life, his childhood? And sad is part of it, but what happened to make it sad? Yeah, kind of like he might have had chickenpox. That's right. He had a pock-marked face. So he might have had chickenpox or acne scars. That's right. Good job, Scotland. Extra credit points to you. I know not everybody can make it into these lessons, but I have been keeping note and track of those that are joining the live lessons and participating. And it will benefit you. So I'm really grateful that you guys are here and participating. So we learned that he had a large jaw. Remember, we look at his depiction. Scroll back up. He had a large jaw, and then as Scotland said, he had a pockmarked face, probably from chickenpox and acne scars. All right, so what happened during Zhu's early life? What was sad about Zhu's early life? Give you guys about 10-15 seconds to answer this question, and then we will move on. Yeah, you can answer any question, Scotland. Remember, you can put the chat commands in the thing to help. Nice, there you go. Elena's got it. A flood destroyed his home. Yeah, that's right. The Yuang He, or the Yellow River, right? Destroyed, caused destruction because it floods, right? And so Zhu became an orphan because of that. Good job. So he had very humble beginnings. He had poor parents and was eventually orphaned, right? Because partially because of the Yellow River destroying his childhood home. And then he had to travel the countryside to beg for money and food. Yep, good job. Okay, let's continue to read on, all right? We're going to continue to read on page 67 right here, right next to the picture, and we'll read this picture in a second. So, Zhu ruled for 30 years. He made China a strong nation again. When one of Zhu's sons, Zhu Di, became emperor, he decided that China needed a magnificent capital to display its great wealth and power. He ordered the old buildings that Kublai Khan had put up be torn. In their place, he ordered a new imperial city to be built. At the center of the imperial city, Zhu Di wanted a splendid residence for himself and the imperial family. The emperor gave this residence a frightening name, the Forbidden City. So let's look at this picture on page 67 and read its caption. All right, it says, Ming Emperor Zhu Di built the Forbidden City as a residence for himself and his family. All right, we're going to finish page 68, and then we have one more question for you, question 3, all right? So the Forbidden City. Amazingly, the Forbidden City survives today. You can stand in places where the emperor's officials made the reports and imagine how they looked and felt. If officials had bad news to give the emperor, they trembled. Before they could speak to the emperor, officials had to kowtow, which means they had to kneel down 9 times and touch their forehead to the floor each time. It showed that they had complete respect for the emperor. All right, so kowtow is a sign of respect for the emperor. Let's look at this picture, all right? Here's a more recent picture of the Forbidden City, right? The Forbidden City is surrounded by waterways. So we're on question 3, Caden. Question 3 is, when did the Ming Dynasty start, and how did China change after the Ming Dynasty replaced the Mongol emperor? So when did the Ming Dynasty start, and how did China change after the Ming Dynasty replaced the Mongol emperor? Can you answer that? Let's see. Yeah, let's go. Caden, can you answer that question? Question 3. Looks like Scotland's answered. Josh has answered. Yeah, his parents died, that's right, but answer question 3. All right, here's question 3. Listen. When did the Ming Dynasty start, and how did China change after the Ming Dynasty replaced the Mongol emperor? Yeah, Katie, that's very good for answering question 1. Can you answer question 3, Caden? Scotland was at 1776. No, that is when another great country was born, right? All right, so Zhu defeated the Mongol emperor and became the first Ming emperor. Although he had a bad temper and sometimes could be a cruel leader, remember he promised to listen to those that wrote letters to him and, offer respect, but sometimes he forgot that promise. He was always defending the poor and especially the farmers. He set up laws so that the noble people couldn't take land from the farmers. So that's question 3. Okay, so we're going to read 2 more pages, and then we'll have a couple questions for you guys, all right? We'll have pages after 69 through 70, right? So we'll read these 2 pages, and we'll have 3 more questions to go over. All right, so Zhu Di wanted to find out about other countries. He called for one of his most trusted soldiers, Huang Hu, and named him Admiral of the Western Seas. He told Yang to build a fleet of ships to explore the world. The fleet included more than 300 ships and a crew of almost 28,000 men. It was like a floating city. The Chinese had invented the compass many centuries earlier, so they were able to navigate great distances on the open sea. On one voyage, Huang Hu went all the way to the eastern coast of Africa. The rulers of Eastern Africa heard that Zhu Di was fascinated by exotic animals, so they gave Huang gifts of animals for the emperor. Huang Hu returned with lions, leopards, camels, zebras, rhinoceroses, and giraffes. And that looks like the picture right here on the right with its caption. Explorer Huang Hu brought back from Africa animals such as giraffes as gifts for the Ming emperor. Let's continue to read. The emperor's officials were so amazed when they saw the giraffe they bowed down before it. Eventually, officials persuaded the new emperor that the voyages cost too much money. To make sure that others did not go on expensive journeys, the officials took Huang Hu's logbooks. And that's our next core vocabulary word, which looks like Caden was putting in the chat. So a logbook is a journal to keep track of daily events, especially when traveling. So notice that because a question about Huang's logbooks will come up in just a few minutes. So officials took the logbooks or detailed records of his travels and destroyed them. Nevertheless, Huang Hu became famous for his voyages. He is considered one of the greatest explorers in history. All right, so we're going to continue to read this page, and then we'll have a couple questions, all right? Okay. All right, so an era of hard times. Let's follow along right here. The other Ming emperors did not accomplish as much as Yuang Yang and Zhu Di, but they excelled at spending money. All right, make sure you pay attention. You'll be asked a question about this. So they excelled at spending money. So it means excelled meaning they were very good at it. They, like if you excelled at history, you know, you would be passing all of your assignments and quizzes and stuff. Like you would be very successful at it. So they were really good at spending money, but often on foolish things. The Ming emperors refused to save money by cutting back on luxuries. This was all the more problematic as many people were going hungry and poverty was increasing. The situation got worse in the 1620s when the climate changed. The weather got colder for a while. Lakes that never had ice became suddenly froze solid. The summer growing season shrank. People starved. Rebellions broke out. One group of rebels broke the walls holding back the Huang He. Remember the Yellow River? Floods then killed hundreds of thousands of people. All right. So next questions. Question 4. Why was Huang Hu, the explorer that we just read about, so important to the Ming Dynasty? And why do you think Huang Hu kept detailed logbooks of his journeys? What is a flood? A flood is when the water rises above its natural barriers or man-made barriers and starts flooding just civilization, right? So do we have a river here in Gallup? let's just say that I-40 was a river, all right? And now it's kind of contained by the walls, the wall barriers right there. If the water started coming up and flooding over into Gallup, and it could flood into people's homes and destroy that, that is what a flood is. It's a overflowing of, you know, a natural water source. So rivers, flood, stuff like that. All right, so question 4. Wang Yi was important to the Ming Dynasty because he built a fleet of more than 100 ships, 300 ships to explore the world. He sailed great distances and made contact with other countries. The emperor and other officials probably learned many new things from what he explored. And then question 5, why was Wang Hu, why do we think he kept detailed logs, books of his journeys? Well, why do you think it's important to keep record of what you're doing? Or especially if you're doing something new, why do you think it'd be important to keep record of a logbook of your journeys and travels? Do you think you could answer that, Elena? Or Scotland? Josh, could you answer that? Why do you think it'd be important to keep track of, if you were exploring new territory, why would it be to get better at it? Yeah? Maybe expand upon that a little bit, Scotland. How would you get better at it if you were keeping track of it? Show the people you can do it. Yeah, or show people how to do it. Right? I like getting better at it. If you kept track of something, you could figure out how to do it. You could do it better or quicker. So that's a good one. Responsibility. I think that's what you were trying to say right there. Yeah. It's also just a way, I think, building upon like showing people that you can do it, showing people how to do it, remembering how we got there, how to get there, whom he met, things that he saw there, just in case he had to go back, right? That was really good. Good job, Scotland. Let's see what Elena was saying. Because you'd want to know just in case you would have guests and you want to show them the route. Yeah, that's right. In case you want to show them the route, in case you have to get back. Remember how you got there, remember who you met, just in case you need to get back there and talk to them about specific things. That's right. Good job, guys. That was really good. Okay, let's continue to read The Coming of the Manchu. All right, so we're going to start getting into the section that will help you with the big question. And you can type the big question chat command in the chat to remind us all what the big question is. All right, so the coming of the Manchu. Eventually, a large rebellion broke out in northern China. The Ming Dynasty fell first into the hands of the Chinese rebels who captured Beijing. Then, incredibly, a Ming general opened the gates of the Great Wall and invited the Manchu to invade China. Over a number of years, the Manchu conquered China. The Manchu set up a new dynasty called the Qing Dynasty. The Manchu turned out to be very strict rulers. They made it illegal for any Chinese person to own any weapon. They insisted that all the Chinese be loyal to them. They thought of a way for all Chinese men to prove their loyalty. For a long time, it had been fashionable for Manchu men to braid their hair in a queue. All right, what is a queue? A queue is a short braid of hair worn at the back of the neck. So we can look at this depiction right here. The Manchu took over China and established the Qing Dynasty. Looks like this guy on the horse has a queue, the braided hair in the back. So Chinese men, however, did not like that style. The Manchu emperor issued an order. In 10 days, all Chinese men had to start growing a queue. If a man did not grow one, that meant he was disloyal to the new government and he would be killed. Being forced to wear cues made the Chinese furious. They felt that they had lost control of their own lives. Okay. So our last question is, how did the Manchu rulers treat the Chinese? All right, so that should be, I think it's question 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, so this is question 7. You can type the question in the chat and the hint if you need to. How did the Manchu rulers treat the Chinese? And it looked like Joshua was answering the previous question because it might be dangerous. Yep, that is a good reason to keep track of a logbook, to know what you faced on the journey. That is a good reason. Okay, so now let's turn our mind to question 7 and reflect upon what we just read and answer, how did the Manchu rulers treat the Chinese? And again, you can type in the chat command for the question 7 and then also question 7's hint. How did the Manchu treat the Chinese? And then for bonus points, you can choose one of the vocabulary words, kowtow, logbook, or cue, and write a sentence in it. And I can give you some extra points for doing that for this lesson. So it's about 5 to 10 more seconds. See if you guys can answer question 7. How did the Manchu rulers treat the Chinese? And then I can help you guys answer it if you guys can't remember. Remember what the Manchu did to the Chinese with their hair? What do they require that they do? And the Chinese were not very happy because of that. They felt like they were losing control of their own lives. So the Manchu, they were strict. They outlawed weapons and required Chinese men to wear a queue. Remember the back of their hair? The braided hair, a queue, one of their core vocabulary words. And they required that so that they would know if they were loyal to the government or not. But because of all these changes, the Chinese people felt like they were losing control of their lives. They will cut others' hair without them knowing. Did we read that? I know they required them to grow the queue, the hairstyle, the braided hair queue in the back of their head. I don't remember reading if they said they would cut their hair, though. They would be killed if they didn't grow one. They talked about, earlier we talked about they'd cut off their noses with Yuang Yang, right? Right here, because he had been poor himself, the emperor made laws to protect poor farmers from rich and powerful nobles. Zhu made it a crime to take land from poor people. If someone took land from poor people, the emperor would cut off your nose. So we read that. Yep. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's it. I'll give you guys a minute more to write a core vocabulary sentence if you want to. A sentence using, yeah, they'd cut off their nose, Scotland. That's right. If you want to write a sentence, you can, using a core vocabulary word for some extra points. But if not, we'll start wrapping up this lesson. It was really awesome having you here and having you guys interact. Elena, Josh, Scotland, Caden, so great to have you guys here. Thanks for participating, and and answering questions. Our big question is, how did the Manchu gain control of China? So reflect on what we read today and go answer that big question post. And that is it for today. I will have a live reading tomorrow morning. It's going to be a little bit earlier because I have to go into school. So I'm going to do it at 8 tomorrow morning before I go into school. If you can make that. That'll be our last 3 chapters of Treasure Island. And I read it today thinking I was live, but I wasn't. So it's going to be some exciting chapters. It's really cool. A great way to wrap up the story. It will be at 8 a.m. Scotland. 8 a.m. I know it's early. I know some of you guys are going into school, so not everybody can make it, but it's kind of the only time I can fit it in tomorrow. But you guys are awesome. We only have one more chapter of Dynasties of China, and then we'll have a review, and then you'll have your unit assessment at the end of school. Looks like Scotland's going to go at the end of the week. School. Scotland's going to go into school. That's what I was saying. All right, I'll see you tomorrow, Scotland. Her video is 10 minutes behind. Or your video, Caden? Interesting. Okay, so, you guys are awesome. See you tomorrow, or see you later this week. Get caught up with all of your stuff, and I will catch you guys later. See ya.